Hi guys. Okay, so the assignment for this week, it's going to be posted right here. I'm going to have the link for the video right here for you. This is the Cami assignment, and then this is the key if you need it for later or you just want to print it out or have a copy of the notes. Okay, so we talked about translations where the image is just moving up and down or side to side. I know that you might recognize reflections because we talked about it on the first day of the notes, but reflections are when a figure flips over a line of reflection in order to create a mirror image. Each reflected point of the figure should be the same distance from the line of reflection on the opposite side. So the line of reflection, that just means what is it reflecting over? And in these are, so I highlighted it for you. This one's flipping over the x-axis. So here's the original, here's the new one, and it just reflected over the x-axis. And for the y-axis, this one reflected over the y-axis. So you can see it went over this way. That's all the line of reflection means. What line did it reflect over? Okay. And then number one, okay, so reflect the figure shown over the y-axis. Record the coordinates of the pre-image and the image. So the pre-image is this one because it does not have prime marks. Remember, the prime marks tell us that that's the new image. So W is at 2, 6. This is where a lot of you were making mistakes in the homework from translations. Remember, we always do the x value first. So 2, 6. So that's W. X is 7, 4, and Y is 2, 2. Now I want you to try to notice something. So we're going to reflect it. It tells us over the y-axis, okay? So we're going to take this and we're going to reflect it over. Now we are 2 away from the y-axis for W, so the new W is going to be 2 away. X is 7 away, so the new X is going to be 7 away. We put the X prime. Y is 2 away from the y-axis, so it's 2 away from the y-axis on this side. Remember, they have the prime marks, okay? All right. So that is how you do that. So you reflect it over. But what do we notice? We notice that my 6 went all the way down here for some reason. I'll have to fix that. But the 2 became negative, but the 6 stayed the same. So for W prime, it's negative 2, 6. For X, it was 7, 4, and now it's negative 7, 4. For Y, it's 2, 2, but now it's negative 2, 2. So if it's reflected over the y-axis, the x values become the opposites, and the y values stay the same. So think, if it's going over whatever axis it's going over, those values stay the same, but the other value will change and become the opposite. So that's why the x values were negative. So that's how you can write it. Negative x values, but y stayed the same. For number 2, you are reflecting it over the x-axis. I highlighted the x-axis for you. So you plot down these points first, okay? And then you are the one that has to plot the new shape. So for D, 2, negative 2, ready? It's 2 away from the x-axis. Now it's 2 away again. F, it's 7 away, so you're going to make it 7 away. E is 7 away, you're going to make it 7 away. So again, here's our notes. 2, negative 2, 2, positive 2. 7, negative 7, the new shape is 7, 7. F is 2, negative 7, the new shape is 2, positive 7. What that means is we reflected over the x values, so the x values are going to stay the same, but the y's are going to become the opposite. So it was negative 2, so it's going to be the opposite now. So that's why it's positive 2, okay? This is written x, negative y, because you're multiplying that y by a negative. For number 3, you're going to reflect this one over the y-axis. Here I labeled the y and the x for you. Okay, so you reflect it. Same thing. How far away is R away? How far away is P? And you're going to plot them just like that. And then then it says reflect your new triangle, so this one, over the x-axis. So if you see, these have 1 prime, which tells us that that's the first new image. But the second new image is going to have 2 primes, which makes sense because it's the second new image. So there's 2. So you put 2 little marks. For number 5, Bella thinks that the transformation below represents a translation. Is she correct? Why or why not? So it went G-H-I-J, G-J-I-H. So it's not a translation because these vertices changed. So what that means is wherever you start, so if you start here and you're going clockwise, they need to be in the same order. So G-H-I-J, so it should be it's J-I-H. So this is not a translation because those vertices would have been the same. It's a reflection, okay? And then for this one, use the chart to compare and contrast translations and reflections. So they're similar because they both create an image that is congruent, which just means the same shape and size, to the pre-image. A translation preserves the orientation of the figure and its vertices, but a reflection does not. So that's the difference. So like I said, a translation would have just moved it over and the vertices would have still been G, H, I, J, but the reflection made it change, okay? Pretend there's like a mirror right here that it flipped over. Now, without even having to put these on a graph, you should be able to do this. If it's reflecting over the x-axis, that means the x is staying the same and the y is becoming negative or getting multiplied by a negative. So 6, 8. So the x is 6, but the y is going to be negative now. B, negative 5, 1. Negative 5, negative 1. C, 10, negative 9, 10, positive 9. So again, that y value is changing, but the x value is staying the same. So that's what we're doing for all of these. And then when we're reflecting over the y-axis, it's 6, 8. So the x is going to become negative, but the y is going to be the same. In this one, my 1, I don't know why I did that. It jumped all the way down. But the 5 is going to change because it was negative. Now it's positive. But the 1 would stay the same. 10 becomes a negative. Y stays the same. 4 becomes a positive because it was negative. It becomes the opposite, remember? If it's reflected over the y-axis, the y stays the same, but the x becomes negative or is multiplied by the negative. Okay. So in your own words, what happens to the coordinates in a figure when the following occur? So if it's reflected over the x-axis, the x values stay the same, but the y values become their opposites. And for reflection over the y-axis, the y values stay the same, but the x values become their opposite. So your job for today and tomorrow is to use the notes from before, and you're going to go through for questions 1 through 8. You're going to write down if it were reflected over the x or the y-axis. So you have to try to see. I don't want you guessing. I really want you to try your best. Okay, this is really important that we're trying our best throughout this whole thing. So I gave you the first one. So I checked, okay, so the y values changed. Well, I know that if the x values remain the same, that means that it was reflected over the x-axis. You do not have to do the description for each one. You just have to write x or y-axis on each of these. When you get down here, you're going to reflect it over the y-axis, okay? And you're going to plot it, just like I did up here on these ones, okay? You're going to do that down here. And then this one, you're reflecting over the x-axis. Then you're going to use the figures above to help you answer these questions. You're going to either write same or change on each of these lines, okay? So I want you to try your best. Let me know if